Hey everyone, today's going to be a little bit different. We're actually doing two lessons. They're both super short, so yeah, we're just combining two of them. We're actually going to do lesson 14 first because I actually think that it makes way more sense to do 14 and then 13. 13, you have to think a little bit more about writing sentences. 14 is kind of more just like fill in the blank stuff. So we're going to do that first. So, here we go. Example 1. Sorry, I have my junky stylus because I lost the other one, so my handwriting's going to be awful, but here we go. This says, fill in the 3 remaining spaces so that all the squares contain equivalent expressions. And so what you should notice is here we have actually a division expression right here, and so we need to fill in the rest of these. This is we're going to write as a sentence. Up here, we're just going to fill in where they belong in their respectful places. So, should be easy enough. So 15 divided by 3, this would, that's how you write it, using kind of like the standard notation. Remember, a lot of times people want to write it like this. You know, people will be like 15 divided by 3, but that's totally backwards. This is 3 divided by 15, so that's no good. And you could also write it as a fraction, so 15 divided by 3. We're actually going to be writing them as fractions quite a bit. And then, finally, as a sentence, it would be the quotient. Remember, quotient means like the answer to a division problem. The quotient of 15 and 3. This is actually pretty important, this part, and it will be super helpful in lesson 13. This is one of the reasons why we're doing 14 first, because when you see something that says the quotient of something and something, it's actually telling you exactly what to divide. So when it says the quotient of, and then it's going to say of, dot, 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 and then it's going to say, it's going to have some number or some expression, and then it's going to say and then it's going to say another number or expression. And that basically means the first thing and the second thing, and is like the word that they're using for, take this stuff before and take the stuff after and that's where you're dividing. So that's what you want to think. The quotient of something and something. Divided and means divided by. Okay, next one. This one is actually, we're going to just use the words dividend, and this one's going to be the words dividend and divisor in these places instead of numbers, which is always good to know. So this is actually, we'll start just like we did before. This is the dividend divided by the divisor. Remember, I always imagine the divisor as a man, one of those cloaked dudes with a giant axe, and he's the divisor because he's dividing evil people. We'll say evil people. So dividend. He's dividing the dividends is what he's dividing. And then we have the divisor. Chopping things up. Dividend. Sorry, I'm trying to write this fast. Divisor. And then this one would be the quotient of, here starts the, of the dividend and it should say the divisor, or terrible. Anyway, notice how it's starts it, and it's the dividend first, and is divided and then the divisor. All right. And that's pretty much it for that lesson. The classwork for this is these 8 exercises. You're going to do this at the very end. There's 8 of these boxes, and you're basically going to do what we just did with one of the boxes, but there are 8 different problems, and you're just going to fill in the spaces. So here's problem 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on. If you are the first group to go to the green tables, you're going to find the papers with the questions at the curvy table. So all the questions for everyone are at the curvy table. You need to, if you're the first group to go to the green tables, you're going to do set A. There's 3 different sets. You're going to do set A. If you're the second group to come, if you come to the green tables second, you are going to be doing set B. And if you're the last group to come to the green tables, you're going to be doing set C. They're all completely equally difficult or easy. They just have different numbers. So just so everyone's not doing the same boring thing over and over again. Before that, though, here is the writing division expressions for 13. So I'm going to go through these pretty quick because I took way too long the first time I tried to record this. So I'm trying to make it shorter for you guys. Write an expression showing 1 divided by 2 without the use of a division symbol. So since we did lesson 14 already, you're probably like, oh, ta-da, 1 divided by 2. Then it says, how can we determine this from the model? Well, if you have a model first, we have a model. This is 1. I have 1 box. Now I'm going to slice it in half. The divisor is going to slice in 2 pieces. And, well, how much is this in comparison to the whole thing? It's a half. So you can determine that 1/2 is equal to 1 divided by 2. Same thing. Write an expression showing a divided by 2 without the use of a division symbol. Well, imagine that I have a, and the divisor comes along and it slices a in half. Well, what do we have here? We have half of a. So a divided by 2 is equal to, or the same thing, or it's equivalent to a divided by 2. And these ones are I'm not gonna, it's hard to write division symbols with a little pen. Dividend, divisor, and this would be the same thing as, we just did this before. Dividend, divisor, moving along. And lastly, so these are probably the more difficult examples to write out, and these 3 are the most like kind of what you're going to be doing. So this first one's pretty easy. Write an expression showing a divided by b without using the division symbol. So I would write it, instead of using the division symbol, I would use a fraction bar. So a divided by b. Actually, you could use this as this is not really the fraction symbol. I think it means don't use that as the fraction symbol. But fractions are probably the best way. Then it says, write an expression for g divided by the quantity h plus 3. A little bit more complicated. But right here we see that it says g divided by. So this is where in our number sentence we have the division. So if I'm writing this in order, I have g, then I have divided by, and then it says the quantity, and I know I can write h plus 3. Okay, so the tricky part here is, if you write it out like this, the problem is that this is actually telling us to take g, divide g by h, because of order of operations, and then at the very end, lastly, we would add 3. We don't really want to do that, because it says the quantity h plus 3. So that's telling us we actually want to take g and divide it by h plus 3, whatever h plus 3 is. So you could either write it like that and put parentheses around it, but the better way, which I will do right here, would be to say I'm going to take g and I'm going to divide it by the quantity h plus 3. It's a little bit kind of less confusing, I think, than the other way. Lastly, I'll write in blue because I'm going to probably write all over the place. This says write an expression for the quotient of the quantity m reduced by 3 and 5. Now this is super kind of confusing, but if you remember how it uses the notation, it says write an expression for the quotient of, boom, the problem starts. It says of, right here. So here's the problem starting, and it says the quantity m reduced by 3 and 5, and we should be thinking that the and is telling us where the division symbol goes. So if you think of it like that, the of tells us where to start, the and tells us where the division symbol is. It kind of makes everything else a lot easier, because then we have the quantity m reduced by 3, and we have 5. So what is the quantity m reduced by 3 mean? Well, that means m reduced by 3 would be you have something, you're taking 3 away from it. So that would be m minus 3. And then we have our division, right? Because and division. Divided by, and then the last part was 5. So I think that is the easiest way to kind of break down these sentences is to try and think about, the quotient of, it starts, look for the and, things before and after the and tell you what's before and after the division. So there you go. You could have also wrote this one just as a side note. You could have said m minus 3 divided by 5. You could write it like that too, but you have to have the parentheses. If you don't have those parentheses, you would do this part first, and that's a different problem, right? Because you have to do division before subtraction. So since it wants us to do this part, keep this together, you have to put parentheses around. So anyway, that is it. Do lesson 14, do those little box things, fill in the blank using sets A, B, and C from the curvy tables that are already printed out there for you, and then you can come back and you can finish the exercises for lesson for lesson 13. And yeah, that's it. And then there's an exit ticket. Have fun.